I even have spent the last 10 years figuring out the sources of drama and whether we're in HR helping or hurting. So the first source of drama, if you look at, of those 816 hours, what part of that is attributed to what? And if we know the root cause, how do we fix it? Ego behaviors, judging, venting, tattling, scorekeeping is a key source of drama. And we feel this in HR. We have step-down meetings where we take your leader out and give you a private place to vent. We have anonymous surveys where without any accountability, you can just say whatever you want to say, and it doesn't have to be professional, it doesn't have to be accurate, it doesn't have to be helpful. It can just be your opinion. We encourage people to have open doors, and in those open doors, access amazing amounts of resources with unprocessed work where they bring in for the leader to process. And what we need to do here is to help people move beyond believing everything they think in their ego so that they have a more accurate view of the world. And there's many tools and techniques to do this. And we're going to give you a couple of those going forward. 23% of drama comes from lack of accountability, and we enable all the time. Accountability, first of all, ego is when you're believing your own thinking and looking through your own lenses and ego. And when we don't insist people toggle up and use better mental processes, we enable that. Accountability, a lot of people ask me, how can I change this person or get them to do something different? And my answer is, as a therapist, you cannot. And if your goal is to change them, you're working on the wrong person. What you can do is stop enabling others. And we enable people in just the slightest way. We put an asterisk by their name. We go, well, I mean, they're unfit for human consumption, but they're a total technical rock star. And if you had a project, you'd want them on your project. We enable people by our silence, or by colluding with them, or by doing for them what they could do for themselves. We enable people anytime we interfere with their view of reality. I had people who wouldn't clock in and would come to me and say, I'm sorry, I forgot to clock in. Can you do it for me? No, I'm glad to help people who forget a couple times a year. But here was the problem. These people were being enabled. They were given bad information, so they're making bad choices. When they would get on to sign in on the computer and realize they hadn't clocked in, they go, oh my gosh, I need to clock in, but that would take me 2 minutes to go over and scan my badge. Instead, I'll have Cy do it. Now, when Cy does it, it takes 10 minutes to do an exception report. If they had the information that when they made that decision, they cost the organization 10 minutes versus 2 minutes of costing themselves, they would have made a different decision. But what leaders do is we go, oh, no problem, let me do that for you. And we never introduce any data. We also don't let anyone experience natural consequences. When somebody says, hi, can you clock me in? Absolutely. Get your team to cover for you for 10 minutes. That's how long it takes me. We'll sit together and we'll get you clocked in. And while I'm in, I'll see if you have your continuing education credits and if you've done your annual training. And we'll just take a good look at anything else you might be forgetting. It's a good one-on-one. Now, all of a sudden, people make different decisions. I didn't retaliate. I didn't punish. But when they think about, it'll take me a minute to go back and clock in, or my team will have to cover for 10 minutes and I'll have to make that ask to take care of my own business, I would rather just go back and clock in. And then once you run back to clock in 3 or 4 times, you're like, I really want to start remembering. It's getting out of the way of people's direct line of sight to reality and the natural consequences. So ego is how we distort our own view of reality. Enabling is how we as HR leaders distort other people's view of reality. And enabling is what's eroding accountability. Double messages erodes accountability. And so there's just a lot of fixes to that. Buy-in is a verb. And we, at times, are giving the double message that buy-in is something the organization needs to do for the individual. And the organization can only work with the willing. Buy-in is a verb. And a lot of people forget this. They think that buy-in's optional. And they have so many conditions on their buy-in. They're like, well, I'll buy in as long as we have plenty of staff and plenty of money and things don't change and change comes in at the pace I like it, and I have all the information and everything's transparent and I'm not surprised and there's no hypocrisy and we know the why. And I'm like, man, I can never meet those requests. And a lot of people believe there's this third option. And I started to see where drama happens. And a lot of it is people withholding buy-in, distancing, and people pursuing, just like a dysfunctional marriage. So people are like, I'll buy in when you up the ante. And leaders are doing more than their fair share of trying to get people bought in. We rolled out a new strategy one year. And I had someone who says, I don't like it. I don't agree with it. I don't think it's where we need to go. Now, they aren't part of the decision-making team on strategy. So I knew that they really didn't have that level of influence, but I'm always open. Is there something that we need to raise a flag on? So I said, oh my gosh, talk to me about your issues with this strategy. Is there some unconscious bias in it? Is it unethical? Does it adversely affect a certain population that's marginalized? Like, what are the legal, ethical, safety concerns about this strategy? And there weren't any. It was, I don't agree with it. My opinion is we should have asked everybody, and we should have been able to influence, and we should have been consulted, and I would have told them to do something different. And as their leader, I said, you know what? The strategy is set then. There's not any reason to opt out of it. What is your plan to get on board and come back by Monday joyfully all in on the strategy? And the person said, absolutely none. And I said, okay, well, on a scale of 1 to 10, what's your buy-in? They're like, I'm like a 3. I go, okay, maybe I started too high to be all in. What's your plan to come back to me with your plan on how you can move yourself from a 3 to a 6, how you're going to manage your own buy-in and willingness? Because that's a verb. That's what you got to bring to the table. I can only work with the willing. They said, I'm not gonna. And I said, after many conversations, then what's your plan to transition out of the organization? And they're like, I'm not going anywhere. I love it here. I go, then what's your plan to get on board? I'm not gonna. And I had to have that conversation that isn't just about performance. It's about willingness to say, you know what? There isn't a third option. You either stay in joy or leave in peace, but there isn't a stay in hate and stay in critique and stay in resist. And many of us in HR and leadership have given people this third option, and we're paying the price for it. And this isn't a dictatorship. This isn't not having dialogue about how we do it. It's about giving people veto power that reality hasn't given to them based on their position or what we're going through, or just many times the decision maker isn't even in our company. Change is still 13% of all drama. People's reaction to, people resisting it, slowing it down, dragging along, complaining about it. We've been working on change since 1989. I'm not sure what other competency we've given people 30 years to get good at, but it's time to pull the plug on this. We say things like change is hard. It lets people step down from accountability. It feeds the ego that they're suffering. It lets them have a way out of buy-in. But the reality is change is not what's hard. Change is only hard for the unready. Your level of readiness determines how difficult change is for you. This is about your skill set, your approach, your willingness, and what you have to bring to the table to agilely move through the world in a different way when things change. This is not about our circumstances. This is about our ability to successfully navigate current circumstances. And when people are suffering, I know the cause of their suffering. It is either their story that they're telling themselves, because reality is never that harsh, or, so that's their unedited poor mental process, or it's that they're trying to deal with a new reality with an old skill set, or they're trying to move through the world with a less than modern approach, or they have a lack of buy-in and willingness, all of which they can impact. And yet we collude with them and sympathize and reinforce their victim-minded belief that it's the change outside of us, the circumstances causing our pain. But our circumstances aren't the reasons we can't succeed. They're the reality in which we must succeed. Another piece that we're just fueling drama is our current approach to engagement. Engagement without accountability creates entitlement. And organizations have over-indexed on how can I create an environment for you to engage into, and we have not insisted that employees share that responsibility for making their own engagement, their own happiness, their own psychological safety, making it portable. See, I can engage and have impact in many more worlds if I am skilled and if I am working to move beyond my own triggers, if I'm moving through the world differently. Now, the book No Ego talks about all of these, gives you ways to fix it. There's about 10% we don't really worry about. It's kind of a junk category. But what I want you to walk away from this webinar feeling inspired about is that leaders' roles aren't to caretake others. They aren't about engaging others or making other people happy or inspiring others. Leaders' role, if we want to get scientific about it, which you can actually measure and quantify based on how much drama there is, a leader's role is to help people eliminate emotional waste by facilitating good mental processes. Drama is waste. It's emotional waste. When we have waste in the workplace, how do we get rid of it? We usually elect first to improve the process, to eliminate waste. If you have emotional waste, what do? Improve the mental process. When I got to be a leader, I found my main work was teaching people how their minds works and helping them use better mental processes. And those mental processes could be self-reflection, that's an easy one, or a tool that would help a group use a better process going forward. Other mental processes, process improvement methodology, project management methodology, rapid cycle improvement. Anytime we bring a methodology, the scientific method is eliminating emotional waste by facilitating a good mental process.